Okay, welcome to another show of the Raul Reyes Show at 7 o'clock on Tuesdays. And I started to talk in Spanish, but that's for a later show. We are going to go virtual Spanish, the whole 9 yards. We did one podcast. We ran into some technical difficulties of what we're trying to do with English to Spanish, Spanish to English. Anyway, the point being is no show tonight at 8 o'clock. I've got a guest, Bianca Gracia. We'll bring her on board here in a little bit. But talk about just all kinds of stuff happening out there in America. Let me first of all implore all of you, please. These are the credentials. If you're on YouTube, Facebook, and or Twitter, share this, tweet it out, reshare on Facebook, and of course, if you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. We would appreciate that. Our viewership is growing, so we definitely are having a good time just reaching out to as many people as we can. We've got a lot to talk about, and but the first thing I want to do, let me put this thing away here for a second, is let's go here for a minute. Um, you probably saw this today. Of all the people who have classified documents in, I guess, at home, is Mike Pence. And you have to ask yourself, what in the wide world of sports? That's a '70s show for a lot of the millennials. Is happening or going on around here? Anyway, we had Mike Pence was actually out here in San Antonio at my church in Cornerstone this past Sunday, and it looks like he's another one of those that they found classified documents within, I guess, his home or his office. And look, uh, a lot of times what we want to do when it comes to these things, and I tell folks, we don't want to get into this tit for tat. We're getting distracted with just about everything. For instance, when Joe Biden says he wants to, stop you from using your gas stoves, the whole world goes ballistic, and you throw memes out there and on social media, and then of course, over my dead body, you're going to take my gas stove, and on and on and on and on. So now when we go back to this classified scenario of things that are happening, you come here because we're going to give you the background picture to this, because what everybody is seeing is, okay, Trump got busted for having classified documents in his Mar-a-Lago home. His home was actually raided because they did that. That's how much they hate this guy now. But nobody remembers Hillary Clinton had a whole server in her closet, in her office, bathroom, somewhere, and nothing happened to this lady. Nothing. Okay, so hold on a minute. Had to do the cough button there for a second. Okay, now fast forward to Joe Biden. And for this last week, we've got three instances where Joe has he has classified documents in his garage where he parks his beautiful car up in Vermont or wherever, Connecticut, wherever he's from. And so the tendency is for us to go, see, your guy did it too. But here's what you really need to be looking at, because then I see this right here. This is Nikki Haley, who says in 2024, she's going to take on Trump and anybody else to be the next president of the United States on the Republican ticket. And she does say, I can be the new leader America needs. Let me tell you something. Nikki Haley is about as swamp as you can get. She's establishment. She's rhino. She's everything. She was one of the first ones to kick Trump under the bus when they went to Russian collusion. So you see this, and then you see Joe Biden get busted for no kidding having uh, classified documents in his garage, and you have to start to ask yourself. Now, everybody is doing the "we got you," and if it's good enough, for Trump, it's good enough for you and Hillary and everything else. But what here's really what's happening on the backside, and you got it here, and there's other smart people that are seeing this as well. We are being told who our next president is not going to be when they bust Joe Biden with classifieds in his garage or wherever he's got it. You see, because what it says is the CIA or the FBI or the Department of Justice in this case is literally able to go after any sitting president they want. And I'll take, for all my elder viewers, um, you know, Spyro Agnew, remember him, vice president, I think number 39 or 38, to Richard Nixon, who had won a landslide victory just months earlier. He gets busted by the FBI for money laundering or something like that. He gets replaced by Gerald Ford, which, by the way, was a choice they didn't give much to Nixon. So there he is. Gerald Ford's in place. And then they get rid of Richard Nixon with the, well, they broke into the Democrat offices up in swamped Soggy Bottom up there in Washington, D.C. All that to say is, since then, it's my opinion that the deep state is now starting to pick our presidents and our elected officials. And if you don't believe that, this is what's happening here. You see, the reason that they're finding documents on Joe Biden is because they want to make sure he doesn't run again. Typically, I would say, great, we need to get rid of Joe Biden, but is Kamala Harris who you really want? And here's the thing. I actually want a rematch between Trump and Joe Biden because we would kick his bleep all over town. But they already know that. That's the point here. And because they know that, they're gonna get rid of Joe Biden. A lot of people would say, well, he's outlived his usefulness, and so that their time it's really time to move on. But they've got to find a way to get rid of Kamala Harris. You understand? And so what's the overall point here is, sure, they raided Trump's house because he had, you know, top secret documents or whatever in his home. They did the same with Joe Biden. The tendency for us is to say, see, your guy did it too. But the biggest concern I have here is now we have a rogue Department of Justice picking and choosing winners when it comes to the president. And let me just say that is no bueno for the republic. Our democracy is based on we get to pick people by a unanimous vote. And then, of course, the Electoral College proceeds to decide the final verdict about who becomes president. When the Department of Justice goes after even Biden, who is the worst president ever, everybody should be concerned. Yeah, I get it. Trump got raided his house, the whole 9 yards. I'm not excited. That should have never happened. They've established a precedence we're never going to be able to take back, but it still doesn't make it right that that's happening to either Trump and or the sitting president. And I'm not defending Biden. What I'm saying is I'm defending the process by which we elect him or anybody else without having the Department of Justice interfere by saying they found documents. Now, real quick, because I want to bring Bianca on here in a little bit. It's here in about 5 minutes or so. Um, let's talk about classified documents. And look, I dealt with classified documents all of my life at the highest level as a lieutenant colonel, retired Air Force guy, especially in the cyber world. And here's what happens. Even the president, when he gets briefed, it's not like the president's walking around with a folder, in public or to a dinner with classified. How it got to his house is probably through some courier of sorts, because that's how they move classified. You have to have a courier, which is a human somebody that grabs it and takes it to wherever the president's going to be. He reviews it, puts it back, gives it to them. They store it somewhere. So the fact that they're finding documents somewhere doesn't mean that Joe Biden did tuck it into his suit uh, pocket or anything like that. But in the case of Trump, I think he was just holding on to documents that were literally just and I'm not saying they weren't classified. What I'm saying is they had him in a skiff of sorts, but they weren't authorized. If you go back to Joe Biden, when you find him in the garage, it's still no bueno. But what I'll tell you is there's a whole process by which even the president sees it, and they compartmentalize this back into a safe somewhere. So something is going on here. And then I'll make this last point. Trump and now the current president, Joe Biden, practically everything he touches is classified because anything he reads or sees, we don't want the enemy of the states to see that, like China, Russia, or anybody else. So anything now can be classified, either unofficial, top secret, or secret compartmentalized information to be put into a facility, which is what they call a skiff. All that said, we can get caught in that minutia that I just went through for the last minute or so. and get lost. We can lose the real thing that's happening here, and that is the deep state is now looking to get rid of certain people. And then you look at what happened here with former Vice President Mike Pence, and you have to ask yourself. As soon as I saw that, I thought, that's it. Campaign's blown up because this is going to eat him up in the campaign trail. And this is purposeful, in my opinion. And guess who's doing this? The Department of Justice, CIA, FBI. Somebody back there is deciding these things. The funny thing here, if there is a funny at all, is this: the guy who actually investigated Trump for Russian collusion, the FBI official, literally got busted for colluding with Russians. So, folks, this is a total banana republic, and you can look at oh, Trump swinging the golf club here. He's laughing all the way because just about everything he said is completely true. And so now a lot of folks are looking at this guy who got busted for colluding with Russia while he accused the president, because he was the investigating officer. You see, I see it this way: they're trying to get rid of that guy as well before he sings like a canary. And would not surprise me. And I hope I'm wrong, but these are the people that sort of end up in places that nobody ever finds, because guess what? There's something going on back here. And so again, this isn't funny. What this is a reality check. Russian collusion was a hoax. They politicized the coronavirus, and then you're looking at all the stuff that's happening with the you know classified document leaks. In Trump's case, they were at his house, and now they're in the garage of Joe Biden. And all of a sudden, VP Pence, former vice president, he's got documents somewhere. So they're using all of this. And when I say they, that's the point here. Who are they? This is the Department of Justice that is out there doing the things to ensure the guy or the gal that they want. Guess where? In the presidency. And that's how they got Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. We could always go back to the election of 2020, and we can go back and forth of the five states that sort of miscounted or overcounted or ballot harvest or whatever the case is. But this is all part of a permanent Washington, D.C. state. Let's go away from the deep state. A permanent Washington elite class that doesn't care what you and I think. They are going to pick our presidents and our leaders. And that is not America. So, with that said, that's why, look, I'm in favor of bringing back Donald Trump. I like Ron DeSantis, but I got to tell you, there's one guy that's going to roll in there and totally fire everybody. At least that's my hope. And start us fresh and brand spanking new. Excuse me. By the way, we got huge winds out here in the Medina Valley, and so there's something in the air. I'm going to have to pull a Marco Rubio occasionally here, so you pardon me as I do that. But back to the overall emphasis here. I'm looking at VP Pence getting just blasted now, and so we'll see if it totally sinks his ship as he tries to get to the White House as well. I like Pence, and in fact, today Trump came out on Truth Social and said, "Look, leave Pence alone. He is a good human being." Essentially, is what he said. This is all, you're making all this crap up. And this is after he blasted Pence a couple of years ago because he would not get the election recertified back to the states. He was the vice president who said that nothing's happened here. Let's move on. So I think Pence is a good guy. I don't think he deserves this. Do I think he'd make a great president? No. And but he doesn't deserve. And this is what happens when you're running with Washington D.C. Permanent Washington D.C. who is hell bent on telling us who our next president and why they want to get rid of Donald Trump or anybody like him. Like in my case, or if you look at Congressional District 23 down here in the South Texas area, Frank Lopez ran against the Rhino Tony Gonzalez, and on and on and on. Even Joe Kemp up in, I think it's Oregon or Washington, great patriot, special forces guy, should have won, got no help from anybody in the general, and lost by barely. All that said, that's kind of where we find ourselves. Real quick, let's talk Ukraine. So today, Zelensky comes out, says he's all about anti-corruption, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that Congress is now being taken over, or the House is being taken over by Republicans, and there's gonna be audits for Ukraine. With that said, I'm gonna leap over, and then I'll bring Bianca. We can have a discussion about all kinds of things. Hang on to Ukraine, but think audits for Ukraine that are being proposed by you know the freshly brought in Republican led House. So all of a sudden, Zelensky in Ukraine is going to be all anti-corruption. Well, there's $100 billion that went somewhere. We're trying to figure out what's happening with that. But now everything is going to be on the up and up because guess what? They're being audited. At least that's the process, which goes to what we're seeing out there by a bunch of Republicans. So a lot of you saw, hey, I think it was Marjorie Taylor Greene or Lauren Burbett or one of those. They want to defund or get rid of the ATF. It was Lauren Boebert and Matt Gaetz, I believe. They said, let's defund the ATF. Some people are talking about defunding the FBI and a whole lot of other people up there. The question that you ought to ask yourself is, okay, what's if we pass all these bills in the House, will the Senate take this up? And the answer is no. Guess why? Because it's a Senate led by Democrats. So a lot of it would seem like it's for show, although it's not, because there are Republicans that are taking advantage of the fact that they are in charge at the House. Remember when we voted to remove Obamacare something like 20 times? And then when it mattered, because we had President Trump, Paul Ryan as the Speaker, and Mitch McConnell as the Senate leader, we had all three. And what did they do? Nothing. When they could have gotten rid of Obamacare, they didn't. So you're starting to see a lot of that right now, except for a few cats. Like I can tell you, Chip Roy's been fantastic. Uh, Matt Gaetz has been terrific. So has Lauren Boebert. They seem to have bill or legislation that actually goes to changing the way the Senate is going to deal with the House. Remember, $1.7 trillion was literally just, it was a speed bump. They ran right over McCarthy. Now he was not the speaker at that point, but Nancy Pelosi was. But they didn't even have it for debate. And $1.7 trillion of omnibus bill spending is out the door. Okay, well, here we are. A lot of Republicans are throwing these bills. Even the rhinos are purporting to be conservative again, knowing that it's never going to pass the Senate. But there are a few people, the 20 patriots that held up Kevin McCarthy from being speaker. I think they're going to be responsible because look, we're headed to a debt ceiling battle. It's looming, folks. It's coming across. They want us to raise the debt ceiling from, I don't know, 33 trillion to 34 and a half or whatever the number is, so we don't default uh, the government. I think, and this is going to be whether this is going to be Kevin McCarthy's do or die moment. He's either going to hang in there with the 20 patriots and force the Senate to succumb and defund some things, like for instance, no more money to Ukraine, and perhaps no more money to all these NGOs that are literally creating and or aiding the invasion of America. NGOs that are along the border receiving money from the government to bring all these illegal aliens into our country, and on and on and on. So there are opportunities here. And when I look at what Chip Roy's, pushing, and some of these other 20, Andy Biggs is out there as well. Matt Gaetz, I said that a couple of times already. Be on the lookout for those 20 patriots because this will be McCarthy's. It'll be a legacy like Newt Gingrich back when the Contract of America was in play, or it's going to be a dud, and McCarthy will be irrelevant because he got no concessions from the money that they're trying to spend. So all that is coming. It's looming. Hang in there. I think it's just gonna get more. I say exciting, but let's just pray that these patriots grow to 40 and we're able to do something about the debt ceiling, but impose the will of the American people back into the elite group up there that is permanent. Washington, D.C., who wants to pick your next president by finding classified documents in garages and in places like Mar-a-Lago. Remember what I said. Presidents touch anything, it pretty much automatically is classified. So they're playing the game out there. It's don't get caught up in the tit for tat. Look at what's behind uh, the the curtain. and let's make sure that we're watching everything closely. All that said, let me bring on my good friend Bianca Gracia. I'm gonna let her give you her credentials. As we jump on, she's been on the show before. She's terrific. And with that said, let me see if we can get her here on board in three, two, and one. Howdy, ma'am. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. I had to go run get my glasses so I could look professional like you because I want to grow up to be like you, Raul.
Hey,
So
listen. Wait.
I was like, I'm
So
gonna go get my glasses so I
yeah.
can look
So let
smart.
me let me let me ask you. So did the wind blow you around? I heard there was tornadoes for the first time in Houston, Texas. Tell me what's
Yes.
going on.
Listen. Oh my God, it's crazy. But hold on, before I even go there, how you
Well,
not follow me on Twitter, dude?
what? Am I not following you on Twitter? I'm
No, how
my
you
bad. I'll do
not?
that right now.
Listen, I'm sharing this while you're over here in your little rant and banter and everything, and I'm like sharing. I'm like, Oye, el camarada ni me sigue en Twitter, man. What's up with that? Anyway,
Wait,
yeah,
I didn't even know that. I have so many
I'm gonna call
followers.
you
It's not
out on
even
your own
funny.
show, man. I'm gonna call you out on your own show. No, listen, I was sitting here. I had a podcast this afternoon. I had no idea we even had rain coming because I'm not watching, TV, obviously.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I'm sitting here and I've got a podcast with the Cafecito Sisters. It's airing tonight, actually tonight at 9, I think. I believe Cafecito Sisters on IG, Facebook, wherever they're at, the
Right.
Cafecito Sisters. Beta Sisters out of New York. So they were interviewing me and I get this alert and it's like, oh, hurricane, whatever, take cover, whatever. And I'm thinking, I'm sorry, not hurricane, tornadoes. I'm like, we don't get tornadoes in Houston. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not we just don't get tornadoes. So I'm like, we have had a tornado come in when there was a hurricane, and we've
Yeah.
had or tornado develop, but not where it's tornadoes, right? So we're like, I was like, whatever. But I can hear the rain and I can hear the wind, but I'm like, okay, whatever. So then it like, it starts to pick up with the wind and the hard rain, and I'm like, okay. Then it goes off again and it's like, in your area, seek shelter now. And I'm like, are you serious? And I just listen, I looked at it and I didn't even pay attention. I'm sitting here having this podcast. And my lights flicker a little bit, but nothing, no big deal. Don't go off. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So then I like yell at my husband. I'm like, you know what? What time is it? Check on my child because he's driving home from school.
Right.
So he goes, no, 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 he already walked in. And I'm like, oh, thank God he walked in. Okay, good. So I didn't even hear him come home. Well, turns out then, of course, I don't know about it's raining. It comes down. So I get off the podcast. I run downstairs. I grab my stuff and it's just storming and you can hear the wind and everything. And I'm just like, I'm just going to stay downstairs because if we have to like, go to a place, we'll go to the middle bathroom or something.
Right.
And so we all just kind of conjugate downstairs. Well, no, let me tell you, I don't know, about four-ish, right? This is going
Yeah.
on from 2 o'clock till about 3:34, four-ish. I start hearing sirens. I mean, it's like they're nearby, like they're right around us. Like I can hear them like if they were down my street, and I'm like, shoot. So anyway, the things start coming in and we start getting, information from friends,
Right.
Skate World, Home Depot, CrossFit. We're getting, we're getting these updates and I'm like, what? And so it's like 4 o'clock. So my husband says, turn on the TV for the news and the local news, right?
Yeah.
Dude, this is not funny. There was total destruction all here in Pasadena, Deer Park. Nursing home, school.
Oh
Listen,
no.
the schools. A school had to take all the little kids and shelter in place. They literally, their brick wall literally blew out. I mean,
Oh wow.
big AC
Okay.
units tumbled through. Look, turned over cars, roofs gone. I mean,
That's got to be a first for the Houston area, right? Because we typically don't see that in the Gulf
no.
area of Houston. So okay,
No,
well,
no, no. I mean, hurricanes, yes, but tornadoes like that and turned over cars? I
yeah,
mean, and the thing is that they're freaking out because, typically tornadoes come through and they just take everything, right? No, this
yeah,
one was a touch. It was like hit one house, would go up, hit the couple houses, everything was fine in between, but that one house is destroyed. I mean, it's horrible. It's horrible right now. So prayers up for Deer Park and Pasadena as people, start to clean up. The
Yeah.
neighbors. The one thing about our community though is the neighbors come out and help each other out. You're not out there by yourself. And
Yeah,
so
no, this is good. I'm
yeah.
glad you're safe. It looks like everything went around you, so
Yeah,
that's terrific.
listen, thank you, Jesus. My house is safe. I'm safe. My kid is safe. My kid got home safe. I mean, I literally, I'm like, listen, I'm not taking this as a joke no more. If I get an alert about a tornado again, I'll be like, it is possible in Houston, Texas, to get tornadoes. We've had them before. So
So if you duck underneath the desk, I should just assume that you're
we are. Hey, we're okay. It's gone. It's gone, dude.
okay, good.
It's out in Louisiana. Listen, all that stuff is moved over. We don't. I'm done. I'm done. So I'm
Hey,
listening
so
to you rant and banter about all this stuff. I
no,
like
no.
to hear your viewpoint.
Yeah,
I like.
so listen, I don't know if you were listening to the monologue here, but
Yeah.
what do you think is going on with this whole, first Trump gets classified. They actually raided the house, but now Joe Biden, and here I guess today or maybe yesterday, Vice President Pence they find classified in I guess his home as well. I tell folks, look, it looks like it's the deep state trying to weed out certain people. I don't think they're going to be able to do anything to Trump. I mean, I think all of that's been taken care of. Biden, it looks like they're pushing him out. Although I don't know, you would think they would investigate uh, Chinese connection, Ukraine connection, the Hunter Biden laptop connection, all this, but they decided that they're going to look at classified in the president's garage as a key factor. I think they're trying to keep him out of the next election. What are your thoughts on that? And I mean, is Joe Biden going to be around? I mean, am I crazy by saying that it's an out of control Department of Justice right now? What do you think?
Well, listen, I just had an interview with a new federal state of China and their anti-communism, right? The anti-communism movement. And they literally did tell me that, the DOJ was pretty much sent against them when they started to talk about,
These
you
are
know,
American. These are Americans that live
these
where you.
Americans. Yeah,
Okay.
they're here. Some of them have been here for like 20 plus years. Some of them have been here for less than that. But
Okay.
the DOJ has been weaponized against them. And I mean, this was news to me. I mean, we hear it. Don't get me wrong. We hear it, but to now hear another faction, the Chinese, these are the Chinese people that
Yeah.
live here and have lived here, but they're speaking out against the Communist Party that's infiltrated America. So it's
Right.
very interesting that you say this in all these documents. And they were telling me, Raul, that Nicole, her name's Nicole, she's the interviewer. She was telling me that 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 Miles Gu, if you file Miles Gu is the guy who's in the Steve Bannon promo intro music video. He's like punching or whatever,
Yeah.
take down the
Yeah.
CCP. That's who that is. So he is the leader of that movement. So
Okay.
they were telling me how that he's done a lot of digging. He's been calling it out because he's followed the money. They said you got to follow the money, follow the money, follow the money.
Right.
And they said, and when you follow the money, they said, these people, they have, I guess, they have statements. I don't know. They have, I don't know if I should call it evidence, but facts
Yeah.
that people within the Chinese Communist Party colluded with Biden and said, "Hey, we will give you, we will help you get elected. We will, get money, do whatever it is, right? That the Chinese communists can do."
Right.
And then in exchange for Afghanistan is what they asked Joe Biden. This is what they're telling me. This is what the Chinese people are telling me. So this is very, very interesting how all this is floating around and how in the world, why are we looking at documents? Listen, and you asked a question. You said, "How do these documents even get to the house?" Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, okay. So I mean, you've been in a workplace. I've been in a workplace.
Right.
Sometimes you take work home.
Right.
You take work home. You go and you read through your stuff that you're doing at home, and then you may have forgotten to take it back to work, or it could have been a copy. You didn't have time. You wanted them to print it out. Whatever. You don't know what the situation is, right? With
Right.
all these supposed documents that are, shouldn't have been at their houses. But I'm like, why is Mike Pence all of a sudden under the microscope?
Yeah.
I mean, I get Trump and Biden and I get your whole thing. They're trying to keep him out. They're trying to do something. I mean, they're obviously working. There's a plan in place. I don't know what that plan is. I'm
I
not
don't
gonna
know
make
why anybody I don't know why anybody would be worried about Pence. Believe me, I think he's a
exactly.
fine man, but I never really saw him as a threat in the Republican primaries. I think
No,
DeSantis is
he's got
probably
a he's polling at like 1% throughout, like for 2 years, he's pulled at 1%. He's not a threat. So
they're
I'm
gonna
going,
crush it down to
yeah,
0.0%. That's what they're
no,
doing.
no, no. But why are they searching his house and find a few documents? The bigger question is, why are the attorneys at his house looking for documents?
Right. And that was the one of the points I wanted to bring up with you is and because it looks like his own team is sort of throwing him under the bus because other than that, uh most people find documents, they either report it and or they leave it alone till the presidential 8 year tenures is over and then stuff comes out later, which we always learn about presidents that way. But I mean, they're just seemingly coughing up Joe Biden, and that's his own team. Its own lawyers are out there doing that. Here's what most people don't know. Let me give you a couple of facts here. The two biggest donors to China, American, I guess, foundations is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the other one is the Ford Foundation. What people don't really know, Bianca, is that the former director for the Ford Foundation is Maya Harris, which just happens to be, guess who? Kamala Harris's sister. So there's a connection all the way back to China, even all the way to the current vice president. And what people don't understand is when either I don't see them picking Kamala Harris as the next president. So I think she's next to be booted out somehow. I mean, this is Nixon and Agnew's spiral, you know, verse number two. But do you see Kamala Harris becoming our next president? I mean, she's worse than Joe Biden, and he's in bad shape. So,
She is really, what I've learned through this this whatever resident president, whatever you want to call them, right? I don't
yeah,
even care. This
not the president,
it's
but
a
the resident of the White
it's a
House.
circus. It's a circus. The people that
Yeah,
live there, okay? The people that think they're running it are running it, whatever. It doesn't matter.
right.
Or maybe to some it does. But anyway, what I've learned is, growing up, I don't know about you, but growing up, we looked at a president and it didn't matter if they were Republican or Democrat, but you looked at a president when you're little and you're in elementary, junior high, and you think of these elected officials and in the House and senators and everything, and you hold them at a high regard
Esteem.
and high standard.
Yeah.
And so you've always thought that, gosh, this is something really big. I mean, to be a president, right? But what I've seen in the last 2 years is that I think nombra cualquier torpe can go up there and be president now.
Have you seen our congressional representative down here in
Yeah,
Congressional
yeah,
Authority
yeah. I
Three?
mean, listen, we do not want him there, but I mean, he's just as dumb. You can
Yeah.
like they literally have lowered the standard for excellence. Okay, for any kind of excellence, either
Yeah.
one of them. They're the most, I mean, they're the dumbest people that we have had in office. They're ineffective. I mean, one laughs like the hyena, the other one doesn't know which direction he's going, can't even complete a sentence comprehensively. I mean, it just goes on and on, and they really haven't done anything other
So
than
this, so this to me goes.
exit or what, $19, $20, $30 at the store. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, so I think this goes back to what I've been, what I think people ought to be looking at. Not so much the tit for tat that okay, you busted Trump, oh, but they busted Joe Biden. Oh, now we're going to bust the Republican VP Pence. Oh, maybe Kamala Harris is. If we keep doing that, and I think we had this conversation earlier, is that's like a lot of red meat for patriots. They're like, yeah, see, Joe Biden sucks, and then we go on but I think the behind the veil information is what I said earlier, and that is that they're literally trying to pick and choose who the next qualified presidents can and can't be, because this is how you do it, right? You sort of scar them up with classified at home and or in Mar-a-Lago or wherever. Now the former vice president Pence is all of a sudden having to defend why he has classified information when he in numerous
Oh,
videos from
wait,
him. Yeah.
wait, it just hit me. It just hit me. Oh my god. Okay, so they've gone after Trump for obvious reasons. Everybody knows why they go after Trump.
Right.
They just don't want him to run again. They can't stand the man. They don't like him. Okay,
That's pretty
but
obvious.
what was the big compelling argument as into Joe Biden, the president having documents and Joe Biden having documents? The biggest thing was vice presidents do not have the authority to declassify or take
Yeah.
stuff home.
Right.
So so think about it. They're like, you can't compare Trump to Biden because Trump was a president and had every right to, if he needed to take documents home or whatever they're
Yeah.
saying, or he had the right to declassify whatever. But Joe Biden was a vice president, had no right to declassify. So that's why they go after Pence. They got to set precedent that
Yeah.
a vice president, look, the vice president Pence, he took documents home. I thought you said that they couldn't declassify. They didn't
So
have.
so you're saying Kamala is next. It's kind of where I'm thinking because she can't have
Well,
classified or else they
she
get rid of her too.
you listen, I wouldn't doubt it, but you're right. At what point will they stop? And we're not going to know because there's something going on behind the scenes. This is not just about picking about who's going to be next president. There's something else going on
Well,
because it's just too obvious. I'm not buying it. Again, I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist, but I'm like, look, I know you and I are not in the White House, and I'm sure that if we were, we'd be running this country 100% better
yeah.
than what it's being run now.
Well, and I think you're right. Listen, I think, there's a lot of empty suits and to be honest with you, I think a lot of patriots. I don't know if you ever Joe Kemp up in I don't know if it's Oregon or
I love
Washington.
him, Joe
Yeah,
Kent.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah. Fantastic. He gets through the primaries, goes to the general, and then they just abandon him. The GOP just does not really support him. He barely loses. I mean, had they helped him,
barely.
and so I think it's purposeful. That's why they don't want Trump. That's why they didn't want a guy like Frank Lopez. And most people, if you didn't know, Bianca here ran for the state senate in the Mace Middleton race. And there's a whole lot of shenanigans about how the numbers played out, and we can get into that later. But the point being is, you, me, and a whole lot of other patriots seem to always lose this battle because they don't want us in because we're not empty suits. We're a little more intellectual, and we could probably run this country and or our districts a lot better than most people would. Besides, we can see through all the BS, which is kind of what I think you're saying about the way they're
Mhm.
finding documents here and there. It is the
Yes.
most stupidest thing I've ever seen. The president is surrounded by hundreds of people. Even in
Mhm.
the Oval Office, when he's by himself, he's got at least two or three people in there with cameras and sound systems to
Yes.
record everything. How it got to his garage is uh, is not unimportant because it is possible that it ended up there. But but folks, I mean, we're talking that stuff. It's the implication is that it is far more worse than your relationship with China that he has, him and Hunter Biden. It is far more worse than the money laundering you did in Ukraine,
Mhm.
and on and on, and all the things that his family is just literally a cartel of its own. This is
Right.
what they pick. I think Kamala's next. I got to be honest with you because they established, like you're saying, that the VPs cannot declassify anything. So if they find something on Kamala Harris, they just figured out how to get rid of her, and then we're off to Nixon, Spiro, Gerald Ford moments back in 1972. I forget what the year is, but anyway, look.
Mhm.
Uh, I- what about China? You think China? I mean, they're not part of this per se, but as I'm looking at the rest of the country, Bianca, and when you're talking about the folks, is the people you mentioned the Chinese organization.
New federal state of China.
What are
Yeah.
they saying about is China? I mean, this is kind of rhetorical, but we've heard reports that China has police, law enforcement in the United States.
Yes. So yeah, that was very interesting. So when I had an interview with them, they were letting me know. They said, Bianca, the Communist Party is definitely infiltrated all of America, and it's worse than you think. They said it's not just your government that's infiltrated; it's every
Everywhere,
aspect of
everywhere.
America.
Yeah,
Every aspect, health wise. They said, you know, they were obviously very responsible for the Wuhan lab and COVID and all that. They said
yeah,
they're very responsible for that. They're very responsible for a lot of the election interference. They're very responsible for things that are going on in the education, buying up our land, controlling our food supply. They're very much responsible for a lot of things that we probably aren't even paying attention to because we just think it's how can China own anything? Well, they do,
yeah.
and that's been their biggest thing. So one of the things is that they did tell me, that they said, look, you guys don't realize, and I didn't know this, but she pulled up the New York Post article
Right.
and showed it to me, and she said, the elected officials in the state of New York, they pretty much for money, right? They all got money in exchange for money. They pretty much allowed a police force to be put together and opened up in the state of New York. This police force works for the Chinese Communist Party, the
And they're
CCP.
tracking who, Bianca? They're
They're
tracking
only
other
they're tracking and they're going after all of them that are
tracking.
part of the new federal state. Anybody who speaks against the Communist Party, they basically have allowed these people, these police, to come after these people.
Yeah.
And they said they're hunting us down because we're speaking out. We're speaking out about the Communist Party. And so I said, "What? How is this happening on our soil?"
Yeah.
But I guess it doesn't shock me knowing that, listen, our ranch out in Brackenville was, they sold what, 80 thousand acres to
Yeah, and I
the
wanna let's transition
Chinese.
to that. The Texas, legislation is, ready to go. They've been in session, I hear, I don't know, 7 or 8 days or whatever the number is.
Mhm,
But just today or yesterday, Senator Campbell,
mhm,
out of the San Antonio area, proposes to put a bill out that precludes or stops foreign nationals from buying land in Texas. I
mhm,
gotta tell you know, this is the 88th legislative session. They did this, folks, for most people who don't know, but they did this in the 86th legislative session. Bianca's talking about the, oh, 68,000 acres that are just north of Del Rio out there where they're going to put these wind turbines. And a Chinese communist general owns the land. How he bought it was via a third party. Anyway, so in comes, the legislative body, and they're going to solve this. I gotta be honest with you, I thought that
mhm,
they put a bill out there that solved already Chinese not buying land in Texas, because that would have automatically put that land up for sale, and we'd be moving on. Here we are 2 sessions later, which is 4 years later, and we have the same problem. People are waking up to this nightmare. 2 things I wanna point out and get your take on this. 1, China is an issue. We should have solved this before, but most importantly here is does this go to the, oh Lord, I want to use the word uselessness, but or the inefficiency is a much better word
mhm,
of our legislative body to do anything. Because look, let's just take China buying land anywhere in America. To stop them from doing that, the Texas legislative body needs to act, which it looks like it's doing that now. But we all thought it did it 4 years ago in the '86 session when when the whole wind turbine, wind farm issue near Laughlin Air Force Base. By the way, that's an Air Force military installation that trains our pilots. This became a big deal. Ted Cruz got involved, and it turned out the legislative body has to act. We come to now, and I'm like, okay, you can't solve gender mutilation, you can't secure the border, you can't do any of these things, and now you're going to try and solve this Chinese, foreign nationals buying land in Texas. Are you hopeful? Because I guarantee you, if, and we both ran for the state senate. Had we been in there, we would be tackling this because we don't want China taking over our farmlands and all this other stuff. And I'll go back to what I said earlier. The Melinda and Bill Gates Foundation is the number one, folks. It's the number one foundation that gives money to the tune of millions to China. And
mhm.
guess who owns the most land in all of America? Bill Gates.
Okay.
There's another guy too, but anyway, what do you think? Is the legislative body just inefficient, or does it really just not wanna solve this problem because they're all bought off? I gotta get
Well,
somebody else's take.
yeah, yeah. Listen, no, they are ineffective. They've been ineffective for a very long time. I saw an ad from Senator Paul Betancourt, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to push to cut taxes." Okay, how many times? I'm sorry. How many times have you told me that already? And all the time that you've served, you're always going to tackle, the tax, but you're never
Yeah,
going to do anything. So I'm like, this is all semantics and jokes, and you're going to go back and act like you're fighting about it.
yeah,
So it's the same thing with the China. Here's the thing. So legislation wants to get involved, okay, and say you're permitted. Any foreign agents are permitted from buying land. Okay, all right, well, the cartel's buying land, China's buying land, you know, all
everybody.
kinds of people are buying
Yeah,
land. We got terrorists buying land. But here's the thing, they can get a third party. They can establish an LLC. They can get a real estate company that's owned by Chinese people, American Chinese, or or not American Chinese, but they could get someone that's obviously has a business here,
yeah,
or that it can they can fund it. Who's to say, how are we going to have a check and balance to know where the money came from to
yeah,
even buy the land? So when you're going to buy the land, if you come with a corporation and you say, this da 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 LLC, the person takes the money. You go and you sell it, you take the money, you're like, woohoo, I sold my land for,
millions, yeah, whatever.
$5 million.
Yeah,
Who's going to go back and trace where that $5 million came from the LLC?
yeah,
How are you going to even how are you going to even really follow up on that? I mean, there's no way. Even if the legislature, so now we're just going to make a law. And listen, yes, we would be raising hell, but that's not the right solution. How are you really going to come down on these people?
yeah,
How are you going to keep them from buying the land because they can use anybody else, a third party, to buy it for them? How are you going to do that? Are you going to write in the bill that if it's ever disclosed, or that if it, I mean, Lord forbid, but if there's any purchased land, right,
right.
that pretty much for the life of the land while you own it, if it's ever found out that it's didn't really belong to the LLC and that it's really the Chinese people's, right,
Right.
or the communist parties, then that they would have, that you'd have to, like, they can go after your land and seize it, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's the only way to really kind of maybe crack down on that. But I'm sorry, our legislators are not going to think about that. They're not even going to put that verbiage in there. They're not going to do any of that. They're just going to make it look like, oh, we're
We
tough
took
on
care of it. Like, we
Communist
took care of
Party.
the problem, right.
Yeah, we're passing a bill, and whatever. It's just going to be another a piece of paper with black and white, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why I'm asking the question. I just, we solved this 4 years ago. I mean, I remember Senator Campbell saying, "Yeah, we took care of this, and here we are with the same problem." We're waking up to China everywhere in everything, to include our healthcare and all kinds of business, and I know you mentioned that earlier, and that's getting just overtly dangerous for us all here. But hey, let's do a quick round robin here. Um, Gender mutilation. Do you think it's going to pass this time around?
No,
Okay. The number one is already out the door, right? No Democrat chairs. It's sort of a priority. That didn't
yeah,
happen. Already out the
no,
door. And what about the border? You see the border being secured. At least Abbott looks like he's just going to try and coast into, I guess, a campaign, as I guess it looks like he's going to run for president. He certainly has a big war chest, something like $60 million. I'm not even sure anymore, but you don't think you have no hope for that either, I guess, at this point. So the border.
no, and I mean, he can't secure a border. He can't pass any conservative thing. He's failed as a governor, and yet we still have him as a governor. And how in the world he didn't get into a runoff with all the other great people running against him is beyond me. Because
So
people wanted him out. People wanted him out. How are you going to go run for president when you can't even solve the problems in your own state? You can't lower property taxes. You have failed to give us school choice in Texas. What you've given us a couple of little, crumbs here and there to say, oh yeah, I championed this. But overall, no. We had a energy crisis, going on. I mean, our state froze, and some people literally froze
Yeah,
to death.
we literally, yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
I
mean
mean,
to
like,
laugh at the
literally, I
people
mean, it's
that
just
died, that's not it, you know?
it's not funny, but
Yeah,
this is how severe it is. Like,
yeah,
you can't even manage and control your state,
yeah,
more or less try to go and control the country. I mean, are you kidding me? You failed in this whole border situation. The sheriffs, who have more power than actually the governor, to be honest,
right,
and they have more power than anybody in the United States, even the president. Even they have band together. How many? 31, 32 sheriffs have said, we can no longer sustain this. Like, we need you to declare an invasion. They asked they asked him for 2 years to declare an invasion, and he wouldn't do it,
yeah,
and he wouldn't do it. And then now that he won, he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to declare an invasion, and I'm declaring an invasion at the border." And what exactly did you do? Because I'm sorry, I'm watching the live feeds from independent journalists. I'm watching I mean, when I do, because I don't try to watch a lot of TV, but
yeah,
they
Anthony Agüero
were
and Ben Bergquam have been
cover
amazing.
covering the border all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
It
they're down in
covering all
Colombia, they're down in
yeah,
folks, if you didn't know, Ben
yes,
Bergquam has been down in Colombia with,
Oscar Blue,
yes,
Oscar
and
Blue.
they're showing that they're all being brought in from Venezuela there and pushed out, and it's crazy the way it's been orchestrated. Somebody sent me a picture, just so you know, Bianca, of the UN is now in Acuña, which is just in Del Rio South in the Mexican side, where they're processing. So, folks, the United Nations is really orchestrating a lot of this on the backside, and the invasion of America continues. You're right. So you're not hopeful for much. I know that I got invited. I'll go this far. I know that I got invited to go to the legislative body. I haven't had time, to go and speak and do things. I'll do it because we need to, we need to be there. We need to keep pushing our legislators to do, or they're just going to run amok however they want anyway. But a lot of folks have gotten tired. They're just not going to do it, especially after Dade Phelan uh, allowed for Democrats to be in key chair positions. Nobody's hopeful that any of the conservative priorities, and there's only eight, folks, ocho, eight. Nobody's hopeful that any of those are going to pass. And I think everybody's looking forward to the primary in 2024. I, what do you think? I mean, have Patriots given up? And I do have one more question, but what do you think? Is there hope
I
for
think
us to try to do something here?
I think the conservative grassroots are definitely worn down and tired.
Yeah.
But we are relentless. We need some rest. We need to restructure. We need to re-strategize, because obviously the strategies that we've been doing are not working. I'm going to
Yep.
tell you what I told the Cafecito sisters, the Cafecito sisters this earlier today. They're in New York, right? They're kind of newer on the block. They're fresh. They're fighting a battle, and I just thanked them for being courageous and bold. But
Right.
I told them, you know what we're gonna have to do? I said, we're gonna have to go back guerrilla style, guerrilla warfare.
Yep.
We're gonna have to go door to door. Can't rely on our podcast. You can't rely on our Twitter page. Can't rely on our Getter. Can't rely on, even if I go to Fox News. It can't rely on any of that. You can't
Yeah.
rely on running the ads, trying to get your message out. You're going to literally have to go door to door. So I told them, I said, look, we're going to have to start a campaign where we get little postcard, and we're going to have to designate someone in our area and say, pay attention to what's going on in your commissioner's court,
Yeah.
city council, whatever's going on, state-wise, federal-wise. And we literally have to go and literally knock on every single door. Not oh, well, that's a registered voter and that's not.
Yeah.
Forget that. Forget it.
In fact, we wanna go looking for the non-registered voter who has pretty much given up on politics, right?
But you have to go knock on every door. And I said, you're going to have to do that. We're going to have to go on the ground. We're going to have to, they
Yeah.
censor us. So we're going to have to go door to door and say, hey, did you know? Did you know this is happening? Did you know this is happening? Take this card, visit this website, please pledge, QR code, whatever.
Yep.
You got it. You're not registered to vote. Can you vote? Are you from, legally here, whatever? I mean, you be a voter deputy registrar and start registering voters. I've told myself that in my district that I was going to pledge to register 100,000 new people to vote that
Yeah.
have not been registered to vote, so that they're undetected by anybody. And we've definitely got the people here. We are. They say we got, I don't know, 800 to 900,000 people in our district. I'm like, no, 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 no. We got more than that. And the Hispanics, they don't take they don't take the census, and they don't do any of that. I know that they're here. I know. I see them. I see them in my district. We are going to have to go guerrilla warfare, door to door, at every single person, build a relationship. And I said, we're gonna have to get our little partners, like, say, hey, where do you live? Okay, I want you to go between this month, you knock on every single person's door in your own neighborhood.
Yeah.
Get their data, get their information, find out if they voted, not voted, get their data, compile a list, and start communicating with these people and saying, forget about the Republican, Democrat, forget about the R and the D. Do you have good water? Do you have good streets? Is the crime low? Are you having choice do you feel like that you have choice in your school districts? Do you feel that the school is now
You have good
telling,
jobs. You have good jobs.
you
Yeah.
have good jobs? Do you feel that, that our community is just in a better direction, worse direction? Do you feel that your property value is too high? Your taxes are too high? Whatever it is that
Yeah.
are just everyday issues
Yeah.
with the community here. It could be
Yeah,
the
and
trash pickup.
start taking those people to literally go and vote in people who are willing to solve those problems because
Yes.
I mean, look, there's such an awakening to a reality that really just it's an insult and a slap to the face because we're supposed to be under conservative Republican
Mhm.
leadership for the last 20 years, and we have worse problems than some of the Democrat states out in the rest of the country. And look, you can only blame Democrats so much. I mean, we're in charge of the House, the Senate, and the Lieutenant Governor, and and the governor. We can't
Mhm.
secure our own border. We can't lower our taxes. That's a big one. I think taxes is really pushing a lot of people out of their houses. So you're right. I mean, we're going to have to guerrilla style, just door to door. It's such an undertaking, but I think as tired, you're right, as patriots may be, they are relentless, and they're going to keep coming back stronger. Let's go there for a second, real quick. Latinos, right? Before the election in November, saw all these people out there just rah, rah, rah. Latinos are coming to the Republican Party. And all of a sudden, it's just, whoop, it's dead. Looks like there wasn't even a Hispanic red wave to really cheer about, especially down there in the South. In fact, Myra Flores lost her reelection. She was the congresswoman. And even Cassie Garcia, I think she did well, but it was expected that this wave was going to just overtake all of that. None of that happened. Because if you didn't know it and I didn't say it, this is the Latinos for America director, and still the Latinos for Trump, and she's been a part of the whole slew of different organizations. But going back to that, are Latinos seeing that potentially the Republican Party is, it just comes around when it wants? And because look, it started to act a lot like the Democrats. You see, Democrats sort of just use everybody, doesn't matter your color or skin. But all of a sudden, I could hear before the election, the November general election, hey, Latinos this, Hispanics this, and all this. And there was old Abbott down in South Texas. Nobody really showed up all that much. Is the is the reason everything we've been talking about, our taxes are too high, or the border's not secure? We don't really have high tech jobs down in South Texas, like in places like Del Rio, Eagle Pass, and you could probably go to Ladero, but which is a big port of entry. A lot of $250 billion worth of stuff comes through. So
Mhm.
but it looks like Samsung, Sony, all these big tech companies are all lining up north of Austin, but nothing's going down. You think Latinos are looking at that and going, well, we may not like the Democrat Party, but we're certainly being lied to by the Republican Party as well. How do you see that?
Yeah. No, definitely. Listen, Latinos are not we're not dumb. We're really not, we may be a little uneducated when it comes to politics or what's going on around us or whatever. We may be uneducated because it's not not something we've dove into or care to follow, but
Yeah.
we're definitely no estamos pendejos,
Yeah.
okay, at all. By no means. You cannot the lie, if you're gonna build the lie in front of us, it only gonna go so far.
Yeah.
This is what I really believe, and I called it out from the very beginning. I would tell Marie all the time, and I said, this whole thing with the Rio Grande Valley, they already cherry picked, the whole Myra thing was totally for fundraising
Myra
purposes.
Flores. Right. Right.
Yeah, they totally did that for fundraising purposes. They used
Yeah.
her. They knew she wasn't going to get reelected. They knew it, but they all went down there. Everybody wanted to be part of it, and yes, they were going to let her have her little two minutes of fame to say she was the first elected. Da da da. But what did that do for the GOP and the RNC? Oh, look, we're inclusive to Latinos, and
Yeah.
she allowed herself to be used. Then they took and they knew that they were going to flip the CD15 because they already had redistricted. They
Yeah.
knew that, but the whole narrative of big red wave and community centers. Well, first of all, there was nothing even going on in the community centers.
Yeah.
They hire people that really have no experience in engaging at all.
Yeah.
They don't even know how to go bring in new voters. Okay.
Yep.
So they it was a false narrative. They knew that Myra and Cassie were not going to win, but they paraded them out there and they fundraised the heck out of them.
The whole
And
area knew, actually. The whole area knew, right? The rest of Texas was were hopeful for these 3. Where I
no,
could
no,
see
no,
that.
no.
I could see how.
Laredo knew. Laredo
Yeah,
knew.
yeah.
I talked to grassroots.
Highway 90, I think, is
Yeah, yeah.
the cutting line. If you folks, if you didn't know, like, if you're in El Paso and you go east back to where Bianca lives in Houston, it's Interstate 10, but then 90 sort of parallels all the way to Jacksonville, Florida. And I could see that south of 90, people are like, I don't know what the hell y'all are talking about. They're going to lose. But everybody else, the media, Fox News, this was this big parade of, man, we're going to have a red wave. I think a lot of it was also to get Abbott, you know, in what would have been a Beto stronghold down there. He had to go over and gloss some things over. And look, you and I are really not into identity politics. We have to have this
Mhm.
discussion because that's what the Democrats play, and we're
Yeah.
realizing looks like the Republicans are sort of doing that thing, which is really insulting to all of us. Whether
Yes.
and by the way, you and I consider ourselves Americans first, but
Yes.
we have to bring in this to this fold because our own party, I say our own party, there's a lot of considerations about what party, never going to
Mhm.
be
Yeah.
Democrats, but a lot of folks, a lot of people are looking at Republican Party go, you've got to be kidding me.
Weak.
Mitch McConnell just
Weak.
betrayed you. Everything
Yeah.
is a betrayal.
Weak.
Yeah, it's weak and it won't do what it says it's supposed to do. I I sense the same thing. I think you called it early on. They use these folks for fundraising, and everybody has moved on like nothing. I have not heard it. I think the other one item in the whole Latino conversation, and I'll do it like this, is there's a whole lot of false prophets out there because they're parading people around and they're all for pro amnesty. And I know Texans, Tejanos, are not for amnesty. If you've been here, if you're here
Mhm.
brand spanking new, you got your citizenship,
Mhm.
or you're a first generation like myself, you do not want amnesty for a lot of people that are coming here who are not assimilated because, generations grow out of the lower end and into the middle class. So when you dump 20 million people into the country, guess where they're going to end up? In the middle class neighborhood, which just lowers the standard of living because then we're all fighting for the dollars and everything else. I think they want it that way, Bianca. I think this is, they met in Davos, bunch of business people met in Davos, and what I find interesting is not a lot of the presidential leaders were there. I mean, I think Joe Biden might have been there and some other folks, but really it was a lot of elitist business owners. I was very surprised to see some of the politicians were out there too, and I'm thinking, what are these people doing in Davos? That is the enemy. They are more of a global economy, globalist, which has totally hurt not just all of Texas, but especially South Texas, which is heavily Hispanic. And so I think you called it right on the money to begin with. They use these young ladies, and by the way, I say young because they are young, but wonderful candidates. And now I think Myra Flores has gone on to do something else. I don't know if she's going to run again. And Cassie Garcia, I'm not sure what has happened to her. I thought she was one of the more conservative, all of them. But
Actually, I was going to say that. I wanted to make that clear and make it known that Cassie Garcia is probably the one that was most experienced to definitely have won and put into office, as she's worked under Senator Cruz for a very long time. She
yeah,
definitely knows her region. She knows policy. She knows politics. She knows the people. She knows the ground. I think the biggest disservice to her was to get her to run for that CD 28. She should have really run at CD 15, knowing that it was going to flip. They should have run her for CD 15 because she was the best qualified person
yeah.
to be in that position. And that's what they really should have done is
But she
strategic.
that's they don't want her because she's they need and no disrespect to Monica, but you're right. If you're not as
Oh, you
experienced
mean
as Cass
Monica De La Crenshaw?
Della Crenshaw, yeah. So
Yeah, Monica De La Crenshaw.
yeah, so that's just another puppet in the making. We're really not going to get a whole lot. In fact, she voted for Kevin McCarthy for speaker. Didn't really
Oh,
stand up, and
of course not. She wasn't going to stand up. She wasn't going to stand up. She pledged that if he gave her money, that she was going to she was going to give him the vote.
yeah,
So it didn't matter what the people in her district wanted. If they wanted
yeah,
to go in a different direction, she was going to give her vote to Kevin McCarthy. And what I heard was that these elected officials basically, when he becomes the Speaker of the House, he has a PAC, and the first million that they raise has to go to his PAC.
yeah.
But it goes to his PAC, and in return, the NRCC and somebody else, I can't remember who else,
Yeah,
his
the
PAC
national
and some other
level, the
PAC.
national.
There's
Yeah,
some other PACs, yeah.
yeah,
They he in turn for his a million that they raise, he gives them 6 million to make sure that they are going to get reelected. So that is a deal that, and that's an insider thing. So that's why you saw that none of these elected officials were caving,
yeah.
because they knew that number one, they if they want to get reelected, they have to go by that rule. But I got to tell you, I was very proud of Anna Paulina. She
Yes,
stood up. She
from
was part of the
Florida,
20.
from Florida.
Yes, we endorsed her. I talked to her, seldomly here. We text each other back and forth. She knows that we're there for her if she ever needs us, or what she needs us, if she needs us to go to testify on something or go
Right.
knock on whatever she needs help with. Fundraise, whatever, right? But she knows that we're there for her, and we were very supportive. I applauded her for her boldness and for her courage. And she said, "I'm here to work for the people in my district."
Yeah,
And
because she's
and
a
you
freshman.
know,
She's a freshman,
freshman.
brand spanking new
Mhm.
congressman, and she stood with the 20, saying,
She
"Not
stood
no,
with
but hell no," with the old way of doing business. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And she did not, and I don't say caved in, she did not give her vote to McCarthy until towards a very, very end,
Yeah,
that she gave her vote, when she knew that there were certain things that she had said personally on her behalf. If these things are not done, I'm not giving you my vote, period. Like,
yeah,
she knew what she was going, rule changing, whatever. She knew what she was going after. And she said, because this is what I promised my constituents I was going to do. And the thing is that she's told me, she's like, these people didn't give me money. McCarthy didn't come and give me $6 million. She's like, in fact, her opponent, the Democrat, outspent her like 9-1 or whatever it was. It was some ridiculous amount. She had $1 million,
right.
and they outspent her with millions of dollars. And she said, and she had Trump's endorsement, she had Kimberly Guilfoyle, she had DeSantis endorsement. So she raised money.
Right.
However, she wasn't the golden child. She wasn't the pick. And
Yeah.
her district was redistrict too. So it was leaning R. They knew that it was possible to flip. So it's not like Kevin McCarthy didn't know he could go, and try to buy her off. But she probably wouldn't have allowed to be bought off. She just is not that kind of
No,
a person.
I've heard her speak. I know I've seen you with her in some of your events. I think she's the real deal. Really
She's a
is.
real deal.
Yeah,
Yeah, she's a
and
real deal.
she's not hanging out with Representative Salazar, which is out of Maria Salazar, I think is the one out of
Yeah, Maria.
Miami.
Oh, out of Miami.
Yeah,
No.
out of Miami. She's
Mm-mm.
Miss Amnesty. In fact, that's the one. She was in Davos, folks. We had a representative from Miami, Florida, in Davos, and she's saying out there, we need to provide people dignity. And so I said, well, that's a pathway to citizenship. But well, not really this and that, but it really is because the bill she submitted before is pro amnesty, and there's a whole lot of folks out there. I think our own guy down here, Tony Gonzalez, is also hanging out with the Libra Initiative, which is all again pro amnesty.
Amnesty.
Let me tell you something. No Americans should be asking for amnesty because everybody is 90% of America's middle class, or maybe 80%. There's a
Mhm.
10% on top and a 10% on the bottom. So if you ask for amnesty, all you're doing is you're shrinking and destroying the middle class. And so now you insert, because we started this with Hispanic Latino. Guess what?
Mhm.
The bottom line is, especially in the minority, if you want to go there, nobody wants amnesty, but yet here they are in Davos preaching. Maria Salazar, I cannot believe she was
Oh,
there.
listen, the only people that want amnesty are the illegals.
Yeah,
And some illegals will tell you they don't care about amnesty. I mean, I've talked to people that are illegal and they said they don't care about that. They just are here to work. They're
yeah.
like, give us some kind of card that we can come back and forth. We'll work here, work permit, something. We'll come here, we'll work, and we want to go back to our country
Well,
and
but those
money
looking
into our
for
country.
welfare, because for reality, if you make all the illegals in America overnight American citizens because they have no jobs or have anything, guess what happens? Automatically on the welfare state. Boom, period,
Mhm.
end of story. Because that's kind of what's happening now. Very illegal what's happening on the border, but here we are. Bianca, because we got to go. Tell me, where can people
What?
find you?
Gotta
You
go.
got
We got
to.
what? Come on, we just got started, man.
We're like 15 minutes over my 1 hour. So tell
Come
me,
on.
tell me
That's nothing.
where can people find you? What are you gonna do next? We'll go another 5 or so minutes, but tell me
Okay.
where are you headed now? Isn't there like a song like that? ¿Pa dónde vas, papá? Anyway,
I
forget.
I don't know. No
Yeah.
sé.
So
Listen,
what are you doing now, and what's the plan? Or are you regrouping? Are you still with the I think it's America project? Give me the scoop.
yeah. So yes, definitely still chief strategist at the America Project. Obviously, yes, been really thinking about a lot of things, but you serve on our board, Latinos for America
Yeah.
First. We have established we've got a very good foundation, we've got a very good structure in place, and I think that going into 2024, I saw this hit piece. I say a hit piece; it's not a hit piece like in a bad way, but it was a hit piece on Fox News talking about the Latino vote and talking
Yeah.
about how it's going to be again. They came back to talk about the Latino vote moving into 2024. It was a big thing, obviously, in this 2022. But the
Yeah.
reason they did a hit piece on Fox News is because they were saying at the end of the day, as they're getting the numbers in, the Latino vote came in 10% higher for conservatives than it ever had before.
So
So
it's growing. It's
we
growing.
moved the needle. Yes, we
Okay.
moved the needle. So what that tells me is that our efforts are working. Our
Yeah.
efforts are working in educating our people and not telling them you're Republican, but telling them, listen, wake up to what's going on around you and vote for the best person and vote for your conservative
Yeah, yeah,
principles.
vote for those conservative values, right? Those
Vote for the
biblical
conservative
constitute.
values.
Okay.
Yeah, don't just, and I think it's obviously working because 10% increase is huge.
Yeah.
So it's huge. So with that said, you and I have talked about this. I've been on the phone with other people, I really want to focus on building Latinos for America first. And I've traveled the country, been over 9 states with the America Project, traveled over
Right.
the country. I've met some very good people across 9 states. I've met some very good people that are ready to go. They're like, how do I get involved? What do I do? And that, a lot of these newer people, right? They need mentorship. They need
Yeah.
training. They need to know how this works, how the system works. They need that. So I'm ready to put a lot of more effort into Latinos for America First. I think I told you this. I have 3 things I want to accomplish within the next 2 years, I would say.
Yeah.
And I know I want to come up with a 5-year and a 10-year plan. And there's some of my advisors that want to do that. They want to come up with a 5, 10-year plan.
Yeah.
But in the next 2 years, there's 3 things I want to do. Number one, I want to establish America First Academy. The
Okay.
America First Academy is going to have a basic. little training and an advanced training. And it'll have a curriculum, and I want to go into places and just, I don't want to have big events and big rallies. I want to be able to get 5, 10 people in a room
And work
and
work work to educate them and
and educate them to help them become leaders in their community and plant the seeds, right? And start plowing.
yeah,
And so that's one thing. Okay. So second thing is all of the Latinos for Trump, Latinos for America First now,
yeah,
right, are trained. Listen, they are phenomenal. I have the best leaders, hands down from anybody else. I can tell
yeah,
you that. They're trained. They've run for office. They've been precinct chairs. They're precinct chairs. They've been poll workers. They've gone with me, traveled across the country as well. Some of
yeah,
them have traveled across the country. They've spoken, they're speakers, they can teach. I mean, they are well-rounded people. They've learned to testify in front of, city council, commissioners court, school boards. They've learned to do a lot of things, right, and become very good vocal mouthpieces in their communities.
right,
The one thing that I think we need to now do is we need to now take this group of people they're not in the beginner crowd, they're in the advanced crowd. We
right,
need to now teach them to go to the capitals to testify in front of legislation in the committees and in the in the hearings, to testify on behalf or against a
right,
bill
right,
or anything that's being written, right? To say we around the Tejanos, whatever you want to call us, Latinos, Hispanics, Mexican American, Tejanos, doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we're Americans, we're Texans.
right,
For Texas, Arizona, and Florida, I want to do that, and Washington, D.C. So that's the second thing is I want to take groups and teach them how to knock on the door of the elected officials and say, this is what we care about.
yeah,
These are the top 3 priorities for us in our community. This is a community I represent, and I am asking you that we've elected you. And this is the thing, they got to find, our conservatives have got to find that if you're sitting in a district of a Democrat, you got to go knock on that district. Because they're Democrat doesn't mean you don't knock on the door and you just go knock on the Republican's door. If
right,
that is your representative, you got to go knock on the door and say, hey, I ain't good with this. I ain't down with what you're pushing. I
yeah.
ain't down with that.
Or
And you
they'll
get,
never know. They're never gonna know. They're never gonna know
or
that
they're
you
never
are
going to know.
yeah,
They're going to continue to believe that they're representing who they talk to. And we need to be more aggressive is where we stand. So that's the second thing, the second pillar. And the third thing is, I talked to you about this. I want to start, and this is again cultural engagement, cultural outreach. I'm in communication with. I won't mention names right now because I don't want. People will try to steal my ideas. They really do. I mean, they're always competing with me.
well, you've been the
Uh,
leader in a lot of things, so I can understand why people are even in this podcast, they'll be listening to what you're talking about. So
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the third thing is I will tell you I'm going to start a some type of entertainment or concert series that goes into Philadelphia, Houston,
right,
Detroit, Las Vegas. I don't know, some of the really tough areas,
right,
right? Tough areas that are predominantly, blue.
right,
And we've got to go in and culturally change mindsets and get into those places where nobody else goes, to have entertainment people engage and outreach and show people that there is another viewpoint or another, without it being political, but there's
yeah,
another type of entertainment other than what you are used to, with a little nas and all that stuff, right?
yeah, right,
So so I think that those are my 3 pillars right there, is taking, as America First Academies, training and educating. you
right,
know second is legislative public policy, teaching people how to civically get involved at your Texas,
engage,
at Arizona, at your state legislators, as
right,
well as federal legislators. That's the second thing. And the third thing is to affect culture and go into places that nobody else goes to. And listen, the RGV wouldn't even be there if Bianca Gracia hadn't defied the Republican Party and gone there anyway to start, planting seeds and mobilizing and organizing within that territory. And
Yeah,
so,
well,
so you got to go into places. And so that's why this third, operational, you call it the operational leg, right?
right,
Of
right.
in the communities affecting cultural change and being a separate, entertainment, you would call it, for people to introduce who America First is, right?
Yeah, because
So
the
those are my
Democrats are the
things.
Democrats already do that anyway. They're integrated into the cultural
Absolutely.
zone of things, which is why we're losing the cultural war completely. So I get it. That's what you're talking about, and it sounds like you've got a plan. And so I guess eventually, are you going to tear off on your own? You're still thinking about this because you'll be growing a team. This is kind of what we expect from you as you move forward. Uh, tell folks, like, where can they reach out to you if they want to talk to you? I mean, is there a
Yes.
website, an email? Give us that.
Yes. Absolutely. Listen, people can find me on any of my social medias at Bianca for Texas. They can private message me on any social media platform. You can visit my website, biancafortexas.com. You can visit latinosforamericafirst.com.
Yeah,
There is a, contact us button on there, and you can definitely send me an email, request to send me a private message, Bianca for Texas, on any social media platform. Listen, I'm on Truth Social, Getter, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Facebook, I feel is becoming a little obsolete, but pretty much all of those. TikTok, I'm on TikTok, believe it or not. We build these pages. We are united.tap, because
yeah,
we are united at the America Project, right? And I've been working with the America Project for a very long time, for probably 2-3 years now, as a grassroots activist, as a partner with them, and
yeah,
I've been with them now, for about a year. So it's been a phenomenal, the America Project is phenomenal. I mean, they're great patriots. They're relentless, they're bold, and they don't care. They're fighters. I mean, these are like the
good,
warriors moving
good.
forward. So the America Project is definitely, they started a Border 911 series with Tom Holman, Victor Avila, and Jason Jones. Their first one is this Saturday in Arizona. They're coming to Alpine, Texas. So I know you have a lot of viewers in your area, CD23, Alpine, Texas, will be in
Yep,
February. You can visit border911.com for that information. So those are some things that they're doing. But yes, for me, Raul, for me, um, I think that, you know, I am dedicated to focusing on Latinos for America First.
okay,
I've talked to my bosses about this, about focusing on Latinos for America First, because of how important it's going to be coming into 2024. And Dr. Patrick Byrne is huge. He hates fancy dinners and chandelier things and all that.
yeah.
He is a true, like, grassroots person. He's
Tacos, the
so
guy wants tacos.
Yeah, he's so respectful of the grassroots movement, and he understands the importance of grassroots mobilization and organizations, right? And so they're very supportive, Raul, of everything I've done in the past, and doing for them, and will do in the future. They support me, 100% with whatever Bianca Gracia decides to do.
Yeah,
They're going to be by my side no matter what. And so I really do want to focus on Latinos for America first. And I think that this is the perfect time right now, when you're not in a, national election cycle. This is the prime time to be going out there, really working on the ground, talking to people, like I said, face to face, knocking on the doors, going, registering voters. This is the prime time to start doing that. You cannot wait till 2024 rolls around. It's going to be too late. It's too late. This is the time to do it. So those are the things you're going to start seeing out of Bianca Gracia. Bianca, for Texas, you're going to start seeing that. So again, Raul, again, I'm just going to repeat it again. Latinos for America First. Three things that we're going to focus on is, number one is obviously, America First Academies, educating and training.
Right.
Second is public policy, legislative. I call them legislative affairs, and where you're going and testifying in front of your legislators and making sure that you are a voice for or against bills
Right.
that they're anticipating. And third, an operational leg of it is holding some kind of entertainment concert series, something with constant, pretty much holding concert series to affect cultural
Yeah.
the cultural
Now that's
mindset. And
I
the
think
youth.
that's gonna
Those
be I
are
think
things.
that's gonna be, I think, the key, the culture war. We've gotta win that. And look, we'll be there and come back and give us a brief on how things are going. I know you've got a lot of brainstorming and workshops you've got to do because I think it's key. Looking back at our conversation about, it's all Latino, Hispanic, everything in South Texas. I think a lot of people got smoked by that whole facade of things. They've up and left, everybody's moved on, and we're still sort of in the same bleep hole. And so I hope that you can affect that because we definitely want anybody and everybody to get out and vote, but vote for the right candidate. I think your movement is apolitical, which is a great idea. I absolutely I roll with the conservative party when it really is conservative, and that would be the Republican Party. But here lately, we've just been disappointed by a lot of folks, and I think that's purposeful. But we can win this battle after battle, and then ultimately win the war. But Bianca, thanks for being on board. Stay safe out there. Avoid the tornadoes and
You're
we will
welcome.
be in touch. Okay.
Absolutely. Listen, thanks for having me on your podcast. You'll need to come on my podcast at some point. You cannot
Just
ignore
invítame.
me.
I'm ready. Just invite
Okay,
me. I'm ready to go.
I'm gonna get my press booker on it. She's gonna contact you and book you for a show. This Friday I got Topher, 28 Billboard artist. He's phenomenal. I'm gonna interview him this Friday. So anyway, but good things, Raul. Hey, stay focused, stay bold, stay out there, stay working. We got to push forward. We got a lot of work to do. So yes, and also if you believe in our movement, go and donate at
There
latinosforamericafirst.com.
it is. There it is.
There, go donate. Sign up for 10, 15, $20, $25, whatever it is,
Yeah.
and buy us a cup of coffee per month. Dedicate yourself to a cup of coffee, $5 a month, for the next year to make sure that we're out there because these things are not going to be
They're not
cheap.
free. They're not free.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're not free. They're not gonna be free. And so, it's gonna cost a little. I've always said this. I don't need millions. I just need enough to make things happen and then
Yeah.
watch them grow. So, if you believe in our cause, go to latinosforamericafirst.com and support all of our efforts, guys.
Yep. We got plenty of viewers here with some dough, and we pray they'll listen and go from there. So God bless you, my friend. We will
All right.
talk to you later. Have a good night. Peace
Peace
out.
out.
All right, folks, there you have it. The great Bianca Gracia. When I first met her, she was running Latinos for Trump, went to Houston, and of course, you know, uh, that organization is still out there. It's now morphed, and I say morphed. There's a separate organization, Latinos for America First, and full disclosure, I've been someone I've provided counsel on things when they're doing stuff, and so I'd like to have Bianca every once in a while just to kind of mix it up a little bit. As you can see, she can talk just as much as I can, if not more. So I'm thrilled to have her. Just some final notes here. Look, a lot of stuff going on. Don't fall for the, classified in the garages. And sure, we sort of got Joe Biden doing the same thing he's accused Donald Trump of doing, but you really have to look at what's happening behind the veil. Who who is pulling the strings on deciding when we can take presidents completely out of the fray or out of the position? That's what they did with Trump. They created a Russian collusion. You just have to look at Christopher Wray, Peter Strzok, and of course all Brennan, Comey, all these people that back then were just hyping up the Russian collusion thing. Why would they do that? These people work for the executive branch. They should get to doing the business of America. The CIA should be looking for spies and whatever else they do. The FBI should ought to be looking for bad guys, and the Department of Justice should ought to be prosecuting stuff. But instead, they seem to be wanting to control how the administrative executive branch, along with a lot of other places, how it runs. So we're here to sort of highlight that every day we possibly can. For everybody who's tuned in, thanks for being here. You're going to find me a whole lot more on Twitter. Bianca said something that was really key. Facebook is sort of fizzed out. Of course, with our podcasting, we're going to be on all the different social medias. But Facebook is still doing what Twitter was doing about a year ago and just sort of down throttling a whole lot of folks, which is why sometimes we can't get to certain audiences. But share the video, put it out there, tell folks, today Raul went long for about an hour and a half. We sort of pulled a Joe Rogan here with Bianca just talking for a while, but that's okay. The information is out there. And of course, with everything, we're going to keep looking into the politics and trying to bring to you what is the real story as opposed to just the what you see up on the surface. So God bless you, everybody. Have a good night. We will see you next Tuesday at 7 o'clock. And we will be programming the Spanish version on a separate timetable. We've got a few things we've got to work out before we go full bore. We did it one time. We learned some things, and but it's coming. It's coming, and just hang on tight. Let your friends know we'll be having political show in Spanish within the next 3 or 4 weeks. So God bless you, everybody. Have a good night. Stay safe, and we will see you next time.